I don't know. Maybe they were hoping that Trump would be like, oh, I love this ad. This is how we won America. Let's call these guys to the US, and obviously that would really help with Solana's ecosystem.
From a marketing perspective, I don't understand what they're trying to convey. Like, how are you trying to move your project and your product better, and how you're trying to improve your customers' lives? This part I'm completely missing with this. And I don't understand then why you would have a social commentary as a company.
It's the weekly show, tech tales and crypto, where the insights flow from the gurus.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the NFA Podcast. We're your hosts, Nish and Frackers, and the A stands for anyone else listening in. This podcast, as usual, is not financial advice. We're just here to cover the news, the markets, and anything else that you might find useful to navigate your crypto, stocks, and tech journey. To give you some background, my name is Nish. I come from a PR and marketing background, been in the space since 2020 full-time, and been fully invested into the crypto rabbit hole. So really excited to be here. Michael, would you like to give a little intro?
Yeah, and I'm a tech entrepreneur and former investor. So I was entrepreneur, investor, really bad at it, and back being an entrepreneur. Time will tell if I'm really bad at it. But... so far, so good. So we cover the news that we think is interesting in the world of tech, crypto, Web3. Try to figure out what the difference is between those things. It's all coming together. It's all merging. That's what I notice now. It really is. It sort of changed. Like it's sort of now sort of accepted. Crypto sort of become mainstream, and in the crypto world, people also talking about AI. Whereas before, it were like completely separate universes, and now it's like one planet.
All under the Web3 umbrella.
Yeah, I think that's a really big change in the last, I don't know, months or something. But I noticed that it's a change. Before, It's like I had a group of people that I talked to tech stuff about, and I had a group of people that I talked to crypto stuff about. And now, I think because of us, it's all merging.
We have changed the world.
Definitely. It only took 7 episodes. So, yeah, I'd go with somebody asked me, tell the people what the goal is with the podcast. For me, it's to hear your views on you're more in the crypto world and I'm a little bit more on the tech side. So that's why I'm doing it. And then I hope that people like from my side, meaning old people, tech people, learn about, hear about your side with your DGen folks and then try to keep an open mind, which right now I'm still failing at it. But that's the goal.
I think the goal for me is to let people get the news and updates within like 20 minutes, because that's one thing I really appreciate about the podcast that I listen to, is that I'm constantly staying up to date. And the goal is also to help people that aren't in the space because, I live a very split life, one with medicine and one with crypto. And my goal is basically to help out the people that aren't in crypto and stop them from DMing me so they can just come here and stuff.
That's a good one. Still the number one question that you get, is it the same that I get? Like, which token should I buy? Is that still the same one?
I got asked that like 2 days ago. But now it's, oh my God, Nish, Bitcoin's down. What are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. I'm not doing anything.
And in my case, sort of interesting, I think, because I'm out of crypto since, I think, a few months now. I don't know if it was December, January, but, when Bitcoin was around 100K. And now, since last week, we discussed how do I get in, is sort of my journey. When do I get back in again? And probably will be, dollar cost averaging. People ask me, did you get back in again? But just haven't had time. And I sort of regret it because now Bitcoin is at 86 already.
So what are you waiting for? What do you mean you don't have time? It takes like 2 minutes.
Because I'm doing stuff like this. I'm actually working. I'm actually, managing a project, advising stuff and working.
How about...
It's not like you just going to school, just doing a little, look at people's mouths and then they go like, oh yeah, that looks horrible. And then walk away.
Right. All right. That's exactly what
doctors
I do. That's exactly.
Yeah, you just go to like, that's not good.
It doesn't smell right. Something's wrong.
No,
sorry, can't help. I'm done. That'll be $1,000.
And then walk out, This is me. This is you walking away from a surgery. Anyway, a lot of respect for doctors clearly here. No, I do. I'm the one that backed you going back to school and living a real life.
You really did. And thank you for that. It was such a great move. Can you believe it's almost been a year now? So exciting stuff. But on the flip side, crypto's not been so exciting. So
No. So what is your news? You go first and then I'll go, because there were some interesting issues in my world. And I'd like to know.
There were some interesting issues in, I think, both our worlds. Firstly, with Solana. Well, we both know what happened with the ad and how that went.
So, America, what's going on?
Well, lately, I've been having thoughts again.
What thoughts?
About innovation. You know, multiplanetary travel, nuclear energy, crypto, AI. You know, things that push the limits of human potential.
What you're experiencing is called rational thinking syndrome. Why don't we take this energy and channel it into something more productive, like coming up with a new gender?
But that's not gonna stop me thinking about innovating and doing something.
Innovating, doing, these are action words, verbs. Why don't we focus on pronouns?
That's not gonna help.
I sense some cynicism. Have you been betrayed in the past?
You know, I used to think the media was my friend. Can I even trust them anymore?
Of course.
Of course they'd say that. That's a biased take. I got canceled for saying 2 + 2 is 4.
Have you ever considered that math is a spectrum?
What?
America, numbers are non-binary. We've been conditioned to believe that 2 + 2 is 4. It's a societal construct.
It's literally math.
Or is it a dominant narrative?
So for me, seeing those kind of ads, I'm like, what is this about? I don't understand what it has to do with Solana. I just don't understand why you run it now, other than trying to suck up to the Trump administration or Republicans. I just don't get it. So for you, from a marketing perspective, what do you think was going on there?
I think that they were trying to ride the wave. Obviously, there's been that whole movement against the gender play that's going through the world. People call it a mental illness. We've seen a lot on socials. Even Mark Zuckerberg has come up and said that Facebook's allowed to call people who don't identify as a certain gender as mentally ill. Like, there's that whole, it's a trend right now. But what I found really interesting is that yesterday, Anatoly put up a tweet. Anatoly is the other co-founder of Solana. And he put up a tweet that says, "The ad was bad. I'm still gnawing at my soul. I'm ashamed I downplayed it instead of just calling it what it is. Mean and punching down on a marginalized group. I'm grateful for what the ecosystem devs and artists that immediately called it what it is publicly and something." Yeah, that's the end. So
That's good English for a Russian.
it was probably his PR team.
So from a marketing perspective, I don't understand what they're trying to convey. Like, how are you trying to move your project and your product better, and how are you trying to improve your customers' lives? This part I'm completely missing with this. So that part I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I don't understand then why you would have a social commentary as a company. If anything, you could argue that you should comment less as a company. Even though you're still in the middle of society, you're part of society, doesn't mean as a company you have to have a political opinion. As a matter of fact, we are both advisors of Tracer. In our team, there are people that are pro-nuclear energy, for example, and are against it.
Yeah.
And so we agree to disagree. And as a company, we don't have an opinion. I don't think we as a team need to have an opinion on everything. We can just say, okay.
You can work towards something. That's it.
Yes, you can work. We agree on where we agree to work on, and we focus on that, and we don't discuss the other parts. It's just, I don't think it's relevant. And because we have a team with Americans, French, Dutch, Swiss,
It's
Singaporeans.
a mixed bag. You're going to have people from different backgrounds. I think what I found really interesting about it, though, was the way that the ad was portrayed. It felt like it was really out of character. I mean, their ETF is launching today. Like, as
Is that what the ad was about?
No, but can you imagine, like, the announcement came out last night that the volatility shares will bring 2 Solana futures ETFs to markets today on March 20th. You know, and imagine they've just pulled down the ad like 2 days ago. It's just such a, it just doesn't make sense.
You know
it's
what's
such
funny
a
about it
contrast.
too? We were just talking about it getting back in the market. Another friend of mine asked me if I'm still thinking about buying Solana, because you and I talked about it last week. And for me, this doesn't change my opinion even though I disapprove of such an ad about Solana, because everybody makes mistakes. And these are, I don't know if they're kids, but these people make mistakes, companies make mistakes. And it doesn't mean that I don't agree with the project, what they're trying to achieve with their solutions. And instead of them apologizing, I think it's better if they would explain what they were thinking. And then I couldn't find anything really of those statements, just the one that you mentioned, but nothing where they explained what the goal was of this and what they were promoting.
The ad was Accelerate America. So from a marketing perspective, what I feel it was just riding the wave of this is what Trump believes in. Let's try and get his attention through a really extreme ad because I think he'll like it. You know, I think it was just a cry for attention from Trump. I don't think that there was any other motive behind it. I don't know. Maybe they were hoping that Trump would be like, oh, I love this ad. This is how we won America. Let's call these guys to the US, you know, and obviously that would really help with Solana's ecosystem. I obviously did not get that. And it's a poor taste, but Solana Foundation has not apologized for it. Anatoly has. So something to keep note of.
Interesting. All right. So that was your first bit of news. And
And the end of the podcast. Yeah. PumpFun's protocol was generating, I think, 15 million at its peak, right? At its peak.
Per day?
Per day.
Yeah.
Okay. This week, it went 24 hours without generating anything. Can you imagine? So the meme coin market is really slowing down.
Really? Without anything? Wow.
Yeah, 24 hours without anything. And the lowest revenue day, like no tokens were launching on PumpFun. And what I found really fun is that PumpFun announced that they were going to start their own DEX, a decentralized exchange. To put in perspective, PumpFun alone accounted for almost 40% of Raydium's trading volume. PumpFun is this platform where people can just launch any token. So like if we wanted to, we could launch a token within like 30 seconds. And if it gets popularity and it reaches a certain market cap, it'll shift from PumpFun into Raydium, which is the decentralized exchange. And it goes into market where everyone can trade it. A lot of tokens were making it onto Raydium. In fact, at its peak, PumpFun accounted for 36% of the DEX's swap revenues, which in 2024 was 154 million, thanks to PumpFun. But
unbelievable.
PumpFun said that they were going to launch their own decentralized exchange. And so Raydium punched back and said that they're launching their own PumpFun called Launch Lab. And it basically just severed their unofficial partnership. I'm not sure why they wouldn't just reach out and make something official or what went on in the back end. But now we're basically going to have two competing platforms within the same ecosystem.
That's interesting because it's always good for the consumer, right? For the user if there's more competition. I just don't know if this is a space where I care about if there's competition, unless something useful is also developed on those platforms.
I think with their revenue being at an all-time low, I don't really see the point of having competition right now. Maybe doing it on a different blockchain like Binance. Binance is doing so well right now for BNB. Being invested by Abu Dhabi and Trump's family being interested. Wouldn't you rather look into those blockchains that actually have potential now?
Good question.
While we're on the topic of the UAE, my last bit of news is that the Dubai Land Department has officially begun pilot testing real-world asset tokenization through real estate.
Really interesting. Everybody's waiting for that. And what did that lead to? More liquidity? Would it be easier to buy and sell, hopefully, right? Instead of it being through
so I have a screenshot of the quote. But basically, he said that he just wants it to be easier for people to buy and sell assets in Dubai. Yeah. The tokenized real estate could account for 7% of the city's total property, which could be worth around $16 billion.
We've been talking about this forever, like since I got in this space 7 years ago, about tokenizing real world assets, and it's so slow. And also the stuff that was tokenized, there was no demand for. classic
No, of
cars,
course not.
all this kind of stuff. Just all this
Yeah.
stuff that you're thinking, whatever, wine, cognacs.
Whiskey and
Yeah,
all
whiskey.
of
I've seen
that,
those.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking for that word, whiskey, and I came up with cognac. I have no idea why. Just had lunch with a French friend. That's his influence. So, okay, that's interesting news. So here's my news then. Dario Amodei, he says that learning to code is irrelevant because of AI. So basically, he keeps going around saying with the next generation of Anthropic and their model Claude, you don't have to learn how to code and it will all be done. So don't teach your kids how to code and don't go to, computer science schools. So basically all nonsense. But there are some other people in the space. That's what makes it interesting. Like Meta's Jan LeCun, who's a really high respected AI scholar, even though he's at Meta. He's a really, really a well-respected guy. And Andrew Ng, I watched a lot of his webinars. I learned, I guess not enough in AI, but what I learned about AI, I learned watching his webinars. He used to be at Google also. He's really, really good. And they say not learning how to code is a mistake because you actually have to program tools and you have to understand
100%.
information systems. So I'm much more on their side just because I think it's nonsense and it's also scary if you have people like me that are not coding. I'm not judging you. We probably both agree that you're smarter. But if I would be the judge of stuff that's been generated by a computer and that's code and it runs application without knowing how it's been developed. I don't know if you've heard that the DeepSeek now, in this whole space, there's so much competition in the AI space. The DeepSeek, China's entry in the space, one of the Chinese entries, the employees are forced to turn in their passports to the government. They can't travel freely anymore because they're now national treasures, which is my word for it.
God.
And recruiters have been told to back off. So basically don't poach people at DeepSeek to go to other companies. So the government's now so involved. And so there's a flip side to the thing that the president of China had a meeting with all these tech leaders a few weeks ago. Now this turns out like, hey, that you've got your government's attention. Well, in China, that means you got your government's attention.
That means the government's watching you.
So having to turn in your passport when you work at DeepSeek, I think those kind of things, they're again thinking short term because then who would want to work there?
You never know because China, I have to say, has done a phenomenal job in their country's growth. About maybe 10, 15 years ago, China and India were very hand in hand. Like they were parallel. You could draw parallels in terms of, cleanliness, in terms of attitudes, in terms of quality of life, in terms of mannerisms, even the country's developments. And today, China you cannot even compare it to the progress that India has made. I mean, China's so far ahead, whereas India is stuck in the same exact place that China was 15 years ago. And it's so sad to see because I want to be supportive and say, yeah, like India is going to do it, but it's just so corrupt. They have the factories, they have the infrastructure, but there's that lack of community. And I think China kind of has that nailed. So while from the outside perspective, it looks a bit scary that, you have to hand in your passports and you're basically signing your life to DeepSeek. But for a country that's built on nationalism, it's a bit rewarding for them as well,
Unless you work there. It's less. And it's less hot unless you're one of those, really smart programs.
But if you are, congratulations,
If you're there, hand in your passport and help your country.
Good on
now,
you.
I think I thought it was really interesting. And then my third bit of news was also related to AI, but it's sort of a boring story, but still interesting. There's a company called Coreweave. I don't know who came up with that name. Would it be an ad agency? Coreweave, aka the first pure play AI IPO, raising $2.7 billion, and it's an AWS, so Amazon Cloud Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud competitor. But it's the first one that's really sized, taking on the big three in cloud services, and especially focused on AI with very strong ties to NVIDIA and to OpenAI. So
Interesting.
It will be a really, really big IPO. They're doing the roadshow right now, and it's funny because we just spoke about it a few weeks how that goes. They're doing the old school, so they go a roadshow, no, tokenization of assets here. It's a traditional roadshow, and they're going to price at the high end of the range. So doing the roadshow, they go around the world, talk to bankers and stuff, and then see at which price they can sell the shares. Then the people that buy during the roadshow, those institutional investors, get a lower price, and they sell it a little bit higher on the first day, so they get their first pop. And then there's some price making and some matchmaking. It's everything I don't like about the traditional financing market, where the insiders have literally the inside track, getting a lower price at a better deal earlier on. But what did you want to say? Because I wonder what
I
did
wanted
you
to say
say?
after all of this, it makes sense why they've taken the passports of their staff at DeepSeek.
Can you imagine? Yeah, it's a really good point, because it's
makes
really the other
sense.
way of looking at this problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's small
because
models.
they're creating this technology that everyone's going to want. If they're losing billions of dollars based on their infrastructure, and DeepSeek has done it within a couple thousand or even $1 million, it's just the math isn't mathing anymore,
All right. So we covered the news. What do we have in stocks? What is going on there in tokens? Do you have any picks that you have?
No,
Stories,
not really. Solana's
tips?
been up and down. Here, let me open up the charts.
Solana's been up and down. That's the way to put it. Solana's been in the news.
It's been in the news a lot. It's done quite well. It's 8% up after the announcement, but in crypto, that's like negligible. So we don't have to talk about it.
See, that's the amazing part, though, because my news, listen to this, it relates to that. So Google bought a company called Wiz for $32 billion. I don't know if you heard this week. 32. It's the biggest acquisition Google has ever done. Google is famous for buying hundreds of companies and then completely destroying them straight into the ground. But because their core business does so well, nobody cares. But of their, I think it's more than 300 acquisitions, almost none of them have panned out. The interesting thing is, this one is $32 billion. Now people are paying attention. That's a lot of money even for Google. I looked at the stock. It did worse over the last 5 days. You buy something for $32 billion, minus 1.08. And then you see Solana up 8%. And then you say, that's nothing. Like Google would murder a child, people at Google, to get an 8%, bump. And in crypto, that's like 8%, 8%. Be serious.
It's whatever. It'll come back down soon.
You said something about India. What is amazing to me is look how many super smart Indians are running great companies. Because Google has Sundar Pichai and Microsoft has Satya Nadella. There is some, maybe they're Indian,
There's
Indian American.
amazing talent. Amazing talent. But what I'm trying to get to is that
great talent.
It's just not being utilized the way it could be. And it's a shame to just sit back and watch it, But what are you going to do?
Maybe it's like in football. So that your great players, like I'm from Holland, there's a small league. Sounds weird to compare India to a small football league. But if you're really good, then you go play in Spain, or you go play in Italy, or go play in England. You don't play in your own country.
That's exactly it. All the best talent is heading out, or they're building their own companies. But it's all staying in silos, It's not benefiting the country. I think it's like a very socialist thinking that China has to be able to take tech and use it to better the entire nation.
That's really actually an interesting take. I didn't think of it yet, because of course India is a much more free market economy than China is. Yet it doesn't produce the same kind of companies that China is producing.
Yeah,
I actually hadn't thought of that much, but that's actually a really good point. I have nothing to add other than, wow, that got me thinking. At which point I go quiet. Yeah, it is food for thought. It's just because what the thing is, Nish, when I meet Indians, I always probably meet like the top, seriously.
Yeah.
Like I did, a few weeks ago, we spoke about Ray Harishankar, the IBM technology fellow that taught me about quantum computing. And again, I just mentioned the CEOs of Microsoft and Google. There's so many great top-level Indian people. So my view of India is like completely different from yours, but I never thought, hey, why don't they build great Indian companies? I remember this book came out a few years ago. Let me explain what a book is to you. So a book is like
one of these, right, that we use for decoration.
Yeah, you put them, in this case here, my laptop is on them right now. So there was a book by Friedman, the New York Times. He wrote a book, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, and before that, The World is Flat. 2 fantastic books, 25 years ago. He went to India and he really thought India was coming up. And that's why that book and meeting great Indian people, I always put those two together and thought like, yeah, he's right. Mm-hmm. And then I never thought about, there are not great Indian technology companies yet compared to what has come out of China. I never thought of it that way, but
Yeah.
Guess you make a really good point.
China's created Tencent. They've created Xiaomi, which we spoke about last week. Everything. They've
Alibaba.
created such phenomenal companies,
WeChat.
Yeah.
And that's just consumer front end. Yeah, it's
There's
unbelievable.
so many. DeepSeek. There's so many companies that have really made a global presence and marked their territory, but you just don't get that thinking. And I understand it's really hard to obviously manage a country that's, has a population of 1.4 billion. But hey, China did it.
Hey, how hard can it be? When England ran it, things went great. Oh, no, it didn't. But there is something I want to mention. There's a startup, actually, that I really like, which I'm on the waiting list. I haven't tried it yet. I think I see this every week about stuff that I'm really interested in. Last week, I spoke about Manus, the new AI tool. Manus, the new AI tool from China, which turned out to be more of a wrapper for Anthropic that we also just spoke about. There's a guy called Dennis Crowley, who's a really interesting American entrepreneur. He comes up with great names for companies, by the way. His first company, I think, was called Dodgeball, which he sold to Google. It was one of the first mobile services, location services, in 15 years ago, I think. Well, and then he founded Foursquare. Now he came up with something new, and it's called Hopscotch Labs, that I think is very interesting. I never really like all these stories about, these glasses that you wear, the VR glasses or the AR glasses, because I have glasses and I hate wearing them, which is why I'm now pretending that I can see you on the screen, because I'm too vain to actually wear my glasses. All I see is like a black and light blue blurb. But you know what they do? Instead of glasses, they use AirPods. And that's what I found so original.
Oh, interesting.
So they're going to use AirPods. Yeah. And AI, of course, everything's AI driven. So it could be like a city guy. So let's say that I go to Dubai, and then I could hear when I go somewhere, Nish went to this place and she really liked it. I thought it was interesting to use AirPods, which is so much more appealing to me than having glasses that give you extra information. I just thought 100%. It was such an original
Plus, everyone already owns the AirPods, You don't
have to buy the glasses. You already have them. And I also thought I just think it's interesting. You know what they call it? I don't know if you're a Harry Potter fan.
I love Harry Potter. So
it's called the Marauder's Map for AirPods. Talk about marketing.
Interesting.
You remember the Marauder's Map? You remember? This will just separate the real Harry Potter fans. So the Marauder's Map, for those not really into Harry Potter map, is a map that you could see in Hogwarts, the castle where the school was, where everybody was at all times. Anyway, that's too much detail.
If you haven't watched Harry Potter, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Go watch Harry Potter.
Go watch Harry
Potter. Quit watching our podcast.
Read the book. Last week I started doing it in the show notes. I put a list of links of everything we discussed. I try to find the articles, not just have the screenshot overlooking my face when we talk about something, but also I'll put the link in the show notes so you can click on the source of where it comes from.
That's all. Thanks for tuning in to the NFA Podcast. We hope you had a really good time. We hope that you learned something new today. And if you didn't, let us know so we can find more exciting news for you.
Thanks. Bye.